Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thanks for tuning in. And as you can tell by the title here, we're talking some free agency, some Jaguars free agency, what they've done so far. And I'm going to offer some takes here. I think, it's been a week since free agency started. A lot of what is going to happen in the NFL offseason outside of the draft has happened at this point. Sure, there's still plenty of pieces left to fall in place, plenty of free agents out there. But we're going to take a look. A lot of business has been done over the last week by the Jaguars with in-house re-signings and by a lot of other teams around the league. But we're going to dive into it. So the Jags, they've re-signed Andrew Wingard, CJ Beathard, JaMychal Hasty, Adam Gotsis, Trey Herndon, Tavon Campbell, bunch of depth players, right? And that's fine. Depth players are critical on every team. You need decent depth players. I think all of those guys offer something to you in the way of depth there. They've extended Roy Robertson Harris, and I think that was a move that saved them 2023 cap space. It was a move that fortified their interior. He was a critical part of the Jaguars' pass rush really emerging and improving down the stretch in 2022. He absolutely was. He was their best interior pass rusher during that stretch. They tagged Evan Ingram as well, which certainly did not save them any money. That tag is actually costing them more than it would cost them to have just extended him. But they were not able to work out that long-term deal. They could still do that down the road. But at this point, they've tagged Evan Ingram. And regardless of how you're retaining Evan Ingram, do you want Evan Ingram back in Doug Peterson's offense with Trevor Lawrence throwing him the football? Absolutely you do. They kick some money down the road with Foye Oluokun, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Brandon Sheriff, restructures, which allowed them to get under the cap and to do the re-signing that they have done to this point. A lot of those moves took place before the start of free agency last Monday, which I think kind of makes them feel less than somehow. Like, because they happened earlier in the offseason, they're just not quite sticking with people as much, right? And I think we are all at this point just kind of prisoners of the moment. I think that's absolutely true. Not just with this situation, right? In general, you're constantly just waiting on the next bit of Jaguars news, whether that be free agency, draft, whatever. We're all on the same boat here when it comes to wanting Jaguars content. So I think that if the Jaguars went into free agency and did all of that stuff I talked about and did it last week instead of doing it over the course of about a month, then I think people probably are having a little bit of a different outlook. But hey, it is what it is. And I have 5 takes here that I want to get to. Don't normally just do take shows, but I think there's been a lot of takes flying around about what the Jaguars have been doing. And I just kind of wanted to air out everything I've been thinking about this past week with the Jacksonville Jaguars, what they've been doing to start free agency. So they lost Jawan Taylor, right? Lost Arden Key, lost Chris Manhertz. That's one starter, right? The Jaguars are going to be just fine. That doesn't mean I agree with everything that they've done so far. And I don't agree with everything they've done so far. We're going to talk about that. But I think you do have to have some perspective. I think all things considered, they're a better team right now than they were going into the 2022 season. Calvin Ridley and Evan Ingram with Trevor plus Christian Kirk and Zay Jones and Travis Etienne in the backfield. Pretty decent offensive line up front. I mean, damn, I know you lost Jawan, but Walker Little, he's played some good football for you already. I think you're going to be just fine there. He took him to the brink in that camp battle last year. They didn't announce that starter till the very end. So look, perspective, right? The Jaguars are a better team right now than they were last year. They have made tremendous strides, both with internal development, with coaching, obviously with Doug Peterson, and with hitting on a bunch of free agents and draft picks over the last couple of years. So I think they're going to be just fine. They're going to have a fun year. They're going to have a really fun offense. I think they're going to be really good long term. Again, Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence are the bedrock the foundation of this organization right now. And I don't think you can be in a much better place than you are with those two. But are they better enough to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs? The Bills, the Bengals, on the road in those environments? Are they better enough to compete for home field advantage? Make those teams come to you in the playoffs? I don't know. I don't know if they're that much better. I know there's going to be even more internal development. Trevor Lawrence is going to be better in 2023. A lot of these guys are. A lot of them. On defense, too. Andre Sisco, Tyson Campbell, Devin Lloyd, Trayvon Walker. They're going to be better on that side of the ball. Those young players are going to be better. But are they going to be that much better? That's what I don't know. And we're not going to know until we see the product on the field. And so for me, I would have been more aggressive to upgrade this roster over the last week. There's no doubt about it in my mind. I would have prioritized adding a starter or two this offseason over bringing back all of these depth guys. And that is by no means an insult to any of them. I like all the players they've brought back in a vacuum, right? I'm simply saying I would prioritize signing a high caliber nickel or retaining a prominent pass rusher over signing two back of the roster type guys. Arden Key's 2023 cap hit, it's less than Trey Herndon and Adam Gotsis' combined. Do you feel that you are getting more value out of Trey Herndon and Adam Gotsis than Arden Key? If you do, great. Personally, I don't. Arden Key's 2023 cap hit, it's less than $1 million more than CJ Beathard's. CJ Beathard's a backup quarterback. I know they value him, and I like the guy. This is not personal. I'm talking about the business side of things here. I think CJ Beathard is a good backup for the Jaguars. I think he's a gamer. I think that he is a really good sounding board in that room. He has a great relationship with the coaching staff and with Trevor. I'm not saying I don't want CJ Beathard back. I'm just saying you can't make something work with Arden Key when his 2023 cap hit is less than $3 million. And I know the Jaguars are trying to be fiscal, trying to be responsible down the road so they can sign guys like Trevor Lawrence, Tyson Campbell, Andre Sisco, etc. They're absolutely doing that. That's part of what they're doing. And they said that they were going to try to do that. They're going to try to keep the pieces they have in place where they can. And they've done that for the most part. Again, they're losing one starter from last year. A couple guys that were role players. But look, I would have done a little bit more. I think you can be responsible long term and a little bit more aggressive right now than they have been, right? I mean, I can't believe Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, a player who is at the very top of his game right now, a player that is at the top of his game, at the top of the position around the entire league at nickel, which is the Jaguars' biggest position of need right now. You can't compete with an $8 million contract offer for 1 year? That's wild. And that's not just an insult to the Jaguars, in my opinion. That's the entire league. Because this guy talks a little bit too much on the field. Like, you can't handle one guy who has a big personality? I mean, look what he did for the Eagles last year. He was unbelievable. You don't want that? I'm talking to the entire NFL right now. You got to be kidding me. Sean Murphy Bunting, he signed a deal with the Titans, your division rivals, who stole Arden Key from you. Also picked up Andre Dillard, who I thought the Jaguars could target as a third tackle. Titans did a lot. And so Sean Murphy Bunting, he's another nickel. And he's a guy who can play outside or inside at corner. He's got really great athleticism. He's played in a defense similar to what the Jaguars are trying to run here. And the Titans offer him a deal that is worth up to $5 million. Not $5 million, up to $5 million. You can't do that? You can't beat that? You don't want to try to beat that? That's kind of wild to me. And it's not even really about all the specific players. It's about the process, right? Like, there was tons of quality nickels available at the start of free agency. None of them broke the bank. None of them. Like, do you bring back a squeaky wheel, or do you try to upgrade the position? Maybe you swing on a free agent and they're not that much better than Trey Herndon, right? But at least you tried to improve. That's kind of how I view it. And I just don't think that they have tried to improve enough this offseason to catch up in 2023 with the Chiefs and some of the other teams around the league. And I'm not trying to say the Jaguars aren't going to be a good team. Like I said, they are going to be fine. I think they're going to be a good team. I think they're going to be a top 4 team in the AFC, top 6 at worst, right? That's how I view them. But is that good enough to get you past where you got last year? Were there opportunities to try to improve the roster to try to get past where you got last year? I think so. I think there was opportunities that they did not take. And now we're sitting here March 20th. Of course, the Jaguars, there's still a lot of moves they could make. And we'll see how it plays out. But right now, March 20th, the draft is a little over a month away. Right now, they are heading into the draft, unless they make some moves here over the next few days, few weeks. And they're going to have multiple areas where they have to take a player early, in my opinion. And that's corner, whether it be a nickel or an outside corner, because you do have some versatility with Darius Williams. Or a guy that can do both. Another guy that's versatile, potentially. Cam Smith. But they're going to have to get guys in the draft that can be high instant impact guys. Like, if they do not address nickel further, if they do not address their third edge rusher further, if they do not address offensive tackle further prior to the draft, they're going to go into the draft with needs at those positions. Critical needs at critical positions. And I think there's a ton of guys in the draft that fit the bill at those spots for the Jaguars, at offensive tackle, at edge, at corner. But the problem I see here, or the problem I fear or worry about, Trent Baalke drafts, I think they've been pretty damn solid so far. But he's been drafting at the top of every round. And none of those guys, for the most part, have been instant impact starters. Trayvon Walker. Did he have an impact against the run for the Jaguars? Absolutely, he did. I will give you that all day. Was he a pass rusher for the Jaguars in 2022? Not a productive one, quite frankly. And now, were they playing him out of position? Yes, I think they were. As a pass rusher, Trayvon Walker should have his hand in the dirt more. I think we've seen that works better for him. But they're going to have to go get a nickel who can start. Otherwise, Trey Herndon is your top nickel right now, right? And I know the draft isn't the end of the offseason. You can still make moves after the draft to address needs. And maybe they plan on doing that. We'll see. But as the team stands right now, they would need these draft picks to come in at nickel and at edge 3 and be ready to go. Be ready to produce. That's just not something you've seen from Jaguars draft picks for quite a while. I'm still hoping that they get a deal done with Evan Ingram later on and then add maybe on like that third or fourth wave of free agency before the draft, right after the draft. That's when they got Arden Key last year, right? So I do think there's still time. And that's why right now, even as I've sat here and said, like, I would have done this, I would have tried to do this, I don't think you've been aggressive enough. they're only a move or two away from people feeling entirely different about this offseason for the most part. And so I'm just not going to sit here and praise or bury their player acquisition this offseason so far. I'm going to sit here and say that I will give them the rest of the spring and summer to figure this thing out. I think it's fair to give them the benefit of the doubt after the season they had last year, after Doug Peterson did what he did in Philly for so long. What you're seeing from this team, from these guys, from their commitment to each other and to the city. I think they should get at least a full offseason before you judge the offseason, right? Like, don't judge the 2023 team before the 2023 team is entirely assembled. But yeah, I would have tried to do a few things differently. I would have tried to retain Arden Key at that price. I would have tried to get a nickel that I feel is an upgrade at that price, at the prices that we saw. I absolutely would have. So yeah, it doesn't mean that what they're doing right now is wrong or right. I want to wait and see the full picture before rushing to judgment. And I know that's not popular today. Like, you're supposed to have a take for every move. And I think I do. But I also can see the fact that this is a team that's better than it was heading into 2022. It's a team that's better than it was at the end of 2022. I still believe that. My question still is just, is it better enough to get you over the top in 2023? We're not going to know. But I do still have hope that the Jaguars make a couple moves to add veterans at key positions that they need prior to the draft or right after the draft, whatever it may be. I just don't want them to go into the draft feeling hamstrung, feeling like they've got to go get their edge or their cornerback in round 1 and 2. Now, the cool thing is, even if they do feel that way, there's a ton of awesome cornerbacks and edge players that should be available, that should be guys that the Jaguars have their eyes on based on their traits in round 1 and 2. So it could be a lot of fun. It could line up really well. We'll see how it plays out. Again, I just wouldn't rush to judgment. Are there things I would have done differently? Absolutely. But don't rush to judgment. I think that's the only way to fairly judge what they do this offseason, is to actually give them the entire offseason to put this football team together. That's just my opinion. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Hit me up on Twitter at Jordan Lugo. Let me know what you think. You can also follow Generation Jaguar at Generation Jag. Hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. The subscriber, everything has been going up greatly lately. The subscribers have not. So if you enjoy the content and you're not subscribing, please do. It really helps the channel grow. Really helps us get more eyes on these videos. So for all the people that are subscribed and liking all the videos, cannot thank you enough. And of course, if you're listening to this on your podcast platform of choice, please subscribe and review there. That helps us out as well. If you want to support the channel even further, you can check out genjag.com, pick up some Duval gear. Really appreciate y'all. Hope you have a great rest of your Monday, Duval.